as the city is in good financial shape. We're down now to 9 candidates for superintendent of county schools in Hamilton County. Hamilton County School Board members going to be voting after a Skype interview with each candidate. Dr. Kurt Kelly, the current interim superintendent, is also on the list. Storms overnight in North Georgia brought power lines down for thousands of customers of North Georgia Power. A national park in Chatsworth had uprooted trees and campers very upset. Crews now working to restore power to everyone in the Chattanooga area. The federal omnibus spending bill contains a provision that allows for funding for construction on the Chickamauga Lock here in Chattanooga. But Senator Bob Corker has voted against it, saying that the overseas contingency operations are exceeding the recommended amount agreed to in the Budget Act from 2015 by $30 billion. And a pedestrian was hit by a car on Market Street and East 3rd.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Cloudy, breezy, and cool weather continues through your afternoon. A few more scattered showers will move back in from the west. High struggling to get back to 55 tonight. Any showers diminishing. Chilly lows 43 to 45. Around 70. A late day shower or storm possible Saturday. More sunshine Sunday. Do you have a pesky tree that needs to be removed around your home or business? Call Paul Bunyan Tree Service now at 423-421-2104. That's 421-2104. And I'm Swarm Team 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ford. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
Welcome. This is the Sam Spade Hour. I am Sam Spade talking to you today. And we're going to talk today about Cash Friday. You know, every single day that we have on Fridays, the first Friday of every month is here at this radio station, Cash Friday. And today, we are going to talk about why you should be pulling your money out of the banking system and how the banking system is set up to control your life and to control you. And that's it may seem like an esoteric issue, but you know, when we tend to think of police states taking charge and we envision a totalitarian government, we think of heavily armed police, and we think of people pointing guns at you, and we think of people swinging nightsticks at your head and controlling crowds with violence and with force. And this is certainly one of the two ways that the state exercises control over individuals, over us. They do it through violence, the carrot and the stick, and they do it with the stick. But there's another way, and that's the carrot. Imagine for a moment what the carrot is in our society. It's money. It's the way we buy and sell the goods that we need every day to survive. If you want to walk into Walmart and fill your cart with groceries, the government doesn't control you with violence. They control you with whether or not you get those groceries. And that's done with the money that you have to use to buy the groceries. Let me give you a specific example. If you wind up using dollars, which we use, where did those dollars come from? Because you had to get them somehow. You had to work for them. They didn't just appear in your account. They didn't just appear in your pocket. Now, I'm talking for the sake of argument right now. Let's keep it simple. Let's not worry about electronic money and money in a checking account and money in a bank and savings bonds and all those things. No, let's talk just about Federal Reserve notes. Benjamins, $100 bills in your pocket. Where did those $100 bills come from? Well, they came from a government printing press. It cost the government 15 cents, $0.15 to print a $100 bill. And then the government turned around and spent that $100 bill. Now, I know you can say, well, no, they took out a loan and they went through the Federal Reserve with a loan and they loaned money back and forth to the Federal Reserve. And yes, I know there's all sorts of games. But in the end, somebody, somewhere, got to print that money for the first time and spend it for the first time. And when they did, they got, for 15 cents, they got $100 worth of purchasing power. That's purchasing power that you had to work in order to get. They got for only 15 cents. Now, what could they do? And I'm not saying they necessarily did this, but what could they do with that $100 purchase? Well, they could buy some extra police force. I mean, that's, after all, one of the things that we keep talking about. And they could buy policemen that have their political view on things, which is to say they feel they need to bash you in the head with a stick if it's appropriate because the government tells them to, not whether it's morally justified. So they can buy a police force. They can also buy control of the food supplies. They do this by buying stock in all of the various food manufacturing companies. They buy stock in any farms. They buy up farmland. They can do a tremendous amount with the amount of money that they print. During the 2008 crisis, just as a for instance, they printed up $225 billion, that's with a B, billion dollars. And that's M1, that's cash and checking deposits. Now, that's not bonds, that's not T-bills, that's just straight spendable cash. To give you an idea of what that means, they have enough money from that printing to buy 20 some odd % of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Think about that. They printed up enough money to go out and buy a significant portion of the Dow Jones stocks, a significant portion of the major companies. And they've been doing this now for many, many years. Ever since the 2008, they've actually been doing it from before 2008. It's one of the major problems with having debt money. You know, traditionally in this country, before 1900, when the Fed was founded, 1913, but basically, you know, that period, this country relied primarily on equity money. Equity money, in the case of our country, was gold and silver. Somebody had to go into the trouble of digging it out of the ground, financing it, refining it, and producing it in order to wind up with gold coins or silver coins. And you couldn't borrow them into existence. You couldn't wave your hand and make them exist. You couldn't run a printing press and produce them. They cost effort to produce. And the result is their supply was inherently restricted. Nobody had a single massive amount of it just because they printed it up. And so nobody could use that form of money to buy the economy, to buy the political strength, to buy the way our country worked. As soon as the Fed came into existence, the Fed began to print money for, in essence, free. And the result is that those that ran the Fed and those that stood at the outfall of the Fed printing presses to get the money could turn around and buy the assets out from the rest of us. You could, for instance, with that $100 worth of printed money that the government has got, turn around and buy up all the houses that are for sale in your area. Before long, you buy up enough houses in Chattanooga and turn them into rentals. People are going to wind up not having any place to live unless they rent, and you can go ahead and start making the rental rates go higher and higher and higher. It's one of the reasons that home ownership in the country has been dropping steadily and rental rates have been going up steadily. The government, and through those individuals that have access to cheap government credit, can wind up performing this kind of function, taking out from under us the housing supplies. They can take out from under us all the industrial production. That's gradually going overseas. That's gradually disappearing because they owned it and they wind up controlling it. So if you look around in the world that you deal with, everything from food to communications, you know, people wonder why the mainstream media has become so pro-government, pro-big business, pro-powers that be. That's because that's where the money is. And it takes a lot of money to run a radio station like this one. It takes a lot of money to run a big national station or TV station. It takes a lot of money to run even a nationally oriented website like MSNBC. It takes lots of money, and they have to get that money from someplace. They wind up getting it from advertisers who get their money by working for the government to get the free printed money, and everybody moves on the direction where their bread is buttered. The net result is mainstream media all has a political viewpoint that is not in your best interest. It's the best interest of the people that get free printed money. My point to you is that I'm arguing that we need to be very careful of the kind of money that we have. One of the first things that we have to do as a country is get away from printed money and move back towards equity-based money. This is Sam Spade. You're listening to Sam Spade Hour, and we talk today, as we do every Friday from 1 to 2, about the way that your life is controlled by the powers that be above, and how you can break out of this control and empower yourself and start to be your own boss, your own individual, survive in an economy that is, frankly, in serious trouble. If you don't agree with that, if you think that things are going well, if you think Trump is going to turn things around, if you think we are in a minor recession and it's all going to turn out pretty good very soon, then I don't think there's anything that I can tell you on this radio show. You probably need to go listen to another channel. But if you look around and you see that the economy is spiraling downwards, you see storm clouds on the horizon that indicate that it's only going to get worse, not better, and you're worried about how you're going to feed your family, about how you're going to keep your house or a roof over your head, about how you're going to avoid having your car repossessed, if you're worried about just keeping your job, this is the station that you need to listen to, because I believe that we're on the way to a second Great Depression. And this radio station is here to help you get through that crisis. Not only to get through that crisis, but to arrange that the system changes so that we don't have another one on the other side. You know, I was just talking about money, and Cash Friday is the thing we need to talk about. We need to look at these pieces of paper in our wallet that we call money and figure out how those pieces of paper are used to control us. If you worry about what is going on with those pieces of paper, how you can get more or just survive, this is the radio station to be listening to. Okay, let's start our Cash Friday discussion with an issue that's important, and it has to do with definition. Remember, anytime you talk about any complicated subject, you need to bore down first and foremost to the definitions that are being used to discuss that. Because definitions are the foundation on which we build our logic and our models and our reasoning of a problem. If you have definitions that don't fit the problem, if you have definitions that are weak, that are unstable, that are not well defined, then the whole structure that sits on them becomes unstable, doesn't result in any conclusions that can be very useful or very interesting. One of the games the bankers play to keep you from understanding the economic situation that we're in and the reasons that we're going into the economic crisis we're going into, and what we have to change in order to stop it from happening again. One of the games they play is to play games with definitions. They change definitions often and repeatedly through the discussion. Just the word money, if you think about it, what is money? Well, you probably don't have a solid definition of it. All right, let me give you one. Let me just mention one that I believe, if you keep it in mind when anybody discusses money and you ask yourself, is this the definition they're using? And if it's not, stop listening to them, or at least translate what they're saying into your definition in order to figure out what they're really trying to say. Let me give you a definition that's very, very important for money. It's what we buy stuff with. That's all. Why is money valuable? It's because people will sell you stuff for it. And therefore, by definition that I want to use, money is what we buy stuff with. Okay, let me go away from money and talk about the definition that I want to talk about today on Cash Friday. Because one of the things we want you to do on Cash Friday is go take $100 of cash out of the bank and put it under your mattress. That's because the banking system is getting very scary. You're sending a statement to the banking system that you don't trust it, and you're also building up a little cash equity in an emergency place if the banks suddenly stop issuing cash, which, by the way, is a very real possibility, but never mind, I digress. Definitions, very important. Let me bring up one word and ask you about a definition of it. The word is deposit. deposit, as in I walk into the bank and I deposit my savings. What in the world does that word mean? Well, the bankers don't like you to know. They kind of move around and they change the definition, and they're not really specific about what a deposit means when you deposit banks. What exactly are you doing when you deposit money? I will give you two possible synonyms. That's one good way of trying to establish what a definition is to pick a synonym that you think means exactly the same thing and say, well, everybody knows what this definition means. And so I'm going to use the definition of the synonym as the definition of the word in question. All right. Two synonyms. When I talk about making a deposit in the bank, am I talking about storing my money in the bank, or am I talking about loaning my money to the bank? Those are two ways that you can look at the term definition. Let me delve a little bit deeper into what each one means and each one implies. All right. Let me talk first about store. That's, if you imagine it, you walk in there with your stack of $100 bills. Let's say you just got paid in cash, $1,000 in cash. Walk in there with your $100 bills and store your money with the bank. If that's the word that means deposit, let's assume for the moment that is. The bank is going to take your money, say, thank you, sir. They're going to give you a little piece of paper that says that they have your money. Notice the operative word, your money. And they're going to walk back into this giant vault someplace, and they're going to put your name on it, and they're going to set it on the shelf. And when you come back in tomorrow and you say, I want my money back, they're going to go back and they're going to pull that money out and they're going to hand it to you. And the only area where there might be a little bit of equivocation here, and it's very minor, is that since a dollar is a dollar is a dollar is a dollar, there's really no guarantee that the $100 that they give you back are exactly physically the same $100 you gave them. So maybe your name is not actually on that piece of paper, but it doesn't matter. The point is, there's a vault someplace with all this $100 bills in it, and they've promised you that your title, you own some of that $100 bills, $1,000 bills worth, $1,000 worth of $100 bills. You own that. You have the title to it. They don't have it. It's not their money. It's yours. They are only storing your money. It's the warehouse concept of banking. A bank is nothing but a warehouse to protect and hold and transfer back and forth as you tell them to with debit cards. Your money. Right? The second kind of definition is loan. If I walk into the bank and I give them $100, if I give them $1,000 worth of bills, and the bank says, thank you, sir, here's a receipt that says we owe you $1,000. It doesn't say you have $1,000. It doesn't say you have title to $1,000. It doesn't say you own $1,000. It says, thank you for loaning us $1,000. Here's a piece of paper that says we owe you $1,000. You are a creditor and we are a debtor. And now what we do with that $1,000 is our business. We don't have to lock it up in a vault and protect it. In fact, we can go out and loan it to somebody. And they can go ahead and start a business, or they can go down to the track and play the ponies, or they can find a good crap game, or they can invest it in Wall Street. And many people feel those two are synonymous. I don't know whether I agree, but there's a lot of argument about that. We can do something with your money that's risky in the hopes that we will get a return on it. And if we do, we'll split a little of that. We'll give you a little bit of that return and we'll keep the rest of it. And as a result, we'll gradually get more and more and more money, because that's the way we make your money, by gambling with the money that you have loaned us. And I will admit that my name for that kind of banking is a little bit hyperbolic. It's a little bit extreme and over the top, but unfortunately I can't find any other name that effectively describes what they're doing, so I'm going to have to use it. That's casino banking. You loan money to the banks and they gamble with it. That you can say loaning money to a small business is not a gamble, but of course it's a gamble. Everything is risky. That business may go under. That business may not pay you, in which case the bank doesn't have the money to pay you back for the money that it has promised you. Now, unfortunately, right now in the United States, legally, the second kind of definition is what the term deposit means. If you want the first kind, you better get yourself a safe deposit box and put the money in a safe deposit box yourself. Or you better put it under your mattress yourself, because if you give it to the bank, you're making a loan to the bank. And the bank is going to do whatever they want with that money, hoping to make a profit. If they make a profit, that's nice. If they lose it, it's your money. It's not so bad for them, but it's a whole lot worse for you. And that sort of situation is exactly the reason that our entire monetary system is on the verge of collapse, because banks have loaned out all their money to a large number of businesses that are on the verge of going belly up. And they keep calling these loans good, but these loans more and more and more are not good. Now, the Federal Reserve, you will say, is going to stop that from being a crisis, because they are guaranteeing all the banks, and they will step in and print the money that they have to print in order to give it to the banks so that there's money available if you walk in and ask for your money back. And that's probably true. But the result is, if it is true, that a whole lot of new money gets printed, you wind up with a whole lot of new money in circulation, and that's the formula for inflation. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place because the casino banking model is failing. And one of the reasons that we at this station want you to go and ask for your $100 back from that bank today is to say to the bank that you're not willing to continue to use their casino model of banking. Now, one of the things the bankers will say to you is, well, look, if we used the warehouse model of banking, and remember the warehouse model of banking says that the term deposit means store. You're storing your money with a warehouse bank. If we use that, we couldn't make any money by loaning money out. And that's true, because the banks wouldn't be able to make loans because it isn't their money to loan. Everybody agrees that the money you give them is still your money in a warehouse. You know, if you think about it, if I take my car to a parking garage, which is another form of warehouse, right? And I park my car in the parking garage, and the parking garage goes belly up economically. The guy that the parking garage owes money to, he can't come and take my car. He doesn't do that because the warehouse doesn't have title to my car. It's still my car. It's not their car. That's the whole point of the warehouse method of banking, is that title to the asset never goes to the bank. The bank never owns that asset. They can never pledge it. They can never risk it. It's always yours. And the problem is, of course, they can't make any money doing that. So they're going to have to charge you for something. After all, if you put your car in a parking garage, they charge you to put your car in the parking garage. That's the only way a parking garage has of making money. And that's the same with banks that work on the warehouse system of banking. So I personally would rather know that my money is safe and secure and pay for the privilege of having a warehouse bank than I would for putting my money, loaning my money to a gambling institution with the hopes that they won't lose it and that it will be there in the future. So that's really what we want to talk about today on our banking segment on Cash Friday, is that you need to understand one of the problems with our monetary system is we use casino banking. And when we get out of this economic train wreck, we need to demand that our banks stop being casinos and start being warehouses. We're going to get through this. I mean, we're coming into the second Great Depression, I believe, in Chattanooga. We went through the first Great Depression and we came out of it. Unfortunately, we didn't learn a lot on the first Great Depression. And as a result, the institutions that caused the first Great Depression, which was the Federal Reserve, massive printing of money, an explosion of money supply, and then a collapse of money supply. Those same institutions came out of it intact, They then produce the same situation that's going to result now in the second Great Depression. If we're not smart, if we're not careful, if we don't stop these same institutions from functioning, we're going to be in the same boat right after this depression for the next one. Let's talk more about it right after this important message. You're listening to the Sam Spade Hour.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Chattanooga's best kept secret, Boyd Speedway. Come see the fastest dirt late model drivers in the South compete for a purse every Saturday night. Pit gates open at 3, grandstand opens at 5. Racing starts at 7. Bring the whole family for a night of fun as they tear it up on the dirt track. Go to BoydSpeedway.net and check out the Dirt Simulator. BoydSpeedway.DirtSimulator.com. Chattanooga's best kept secret, Boyd Speedway. Fun-filled, outrageous racing. We'll see you Saturday night.
The Nesmith Street Stock Event. Limited late models, crate late models, sportsman, hobby, and street stocks.
Boyd Speedway.
There's a reason why Alliance Physical Therapy is a choice of professionals and those who care about first-class, top-notch service and treatment. Because at Alliance Physical Therapy of Chattanooga, we don't just treat the symptoms in your body. Whether you're suffering from stiffness, muscle spasms, back pain, chronic headaches every day, stress of life demanding more and more of you, Alliance Physical Therapy takes a holistic approach to healing, mind, body, and soul. Alliance Physical Therapy with a location near you and 9 others in the Chattanooga area. If you don't have a doctor or if your physician's plan for chronic pain is not working, Alliance Physical Therapy will help. Visit Alliance Physical Therapy on the web at nopainpt.com. That's nopainpt.com. Alliance Physical Therapy.
Window Depot of Chattanooga. They're locally owned and operated and been around since 2008, installing top quality vinyl replacement windows. You get the best price and service in the area. Top quality double pane, energy efficient windows. They look great and save you money.
Oh, I love to save money.
You'll also save money on your heating and cooling costs. Call 894-0011. 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Sales and installation professionals. You'll get a fantastic job while helping to enhance the value, appearance, comfort, and efficiency of your most valuable asset, your home. Other window providers? No way. Window Depot Chattanooga's windows qualify for the TVA rebate. Sliding doors, gutters, soffits, fascia, garage doors, and other home improvements. If you want to save a ton, call 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Window Depot of Chattanooga. Sales and installation professionals.
Got vacation plans? For 4-legged family members left behind, the Inn at Wolf Deaver has a deal for you. Book at least 3 nights in an Inn Classic or a preferred suite. Get a night free. That's right, 1 free night. These suites are truly doggy-sized hotel room. And next door, Wolf Deaver Pet Hospital will give all required vaccinations and testing 30% off. Time limited to plan your doggy stay. Conditions apply. 344-1913. WolfDeaver.com. Is your career taking you where you want to go? If not, talk to Covenant Group Insurance, especially if you like helping people. Call and learn how you can work for yourself, but not by yourself. Intense but free training, plus a fantastic lead program, plus office support equals your success, your prosperity. Gross at least $75,000 your first year selling insurance. Call Steve or Jada for a confidential interview. That's 855-8484. Maybe the most important call you'll make all year.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. News now. The city of Saudi Daisy is now debt-free after paying off its loan to buy the Big Saudi Gulf. Saudi Daisy commissioners approved an amendment for the 2016-2017 general fund budget. City Manager Janice Cagle says the city is in good financial shape. We're down now to 9 candidates for Superintendent of County Schools in Hamilton County. Hamilton County School Board members going to be voting after a Skype interview with each candidate. Dr. Cupelli, the current interim superintendent, is also on the list. Storms overnight in North Georgia brought power lines down for thousands of customers of North Georgia Power. A national park in Chatsworth had uprooted trees and campers very upset. Crews now working to restore power to everyone in the Chattanooga area. The federal omnibus spending bill contains a provision that allows for funding for construction on the Chickamauga Lock here in Chattanooga. But Senator Bob Corker has voted against it, saying that the overseas contingency operations are exceeding the recommended amount agreed to in the Budget Act from 2015 by $30 billion. And a pedestrian was hit by a car on Market Street and East 3rd.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Cloudy, breezy, and cool weather continues through your afternoon. A few more scattered showers will move back in from the west. High struggling to get back to 55 tonight. Any showers diminishing. Chilly, lows 43 to 45. Around 70. A late day shower or storm possible Saturday. More sunshine Sunday. Do you have a pesky tree that needs to be removed around your home or business? Call Paul Bunyan Tree Service now at 423-421-2104. That's 421-2104. And I'm Sports 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Core. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Odious debt. I didn't say odiferous debt, although that's probably a good way of describing it too. But I said odious debt. That's strictly speaking a legal term, and it talks about debt. It's going to be a term that's going to become more and more important to you as time progresses and the economy continues downhill. You know, my wife has a philosophy that says you borrowed the money, you have to pay it back, period. She says it's not up to anybody else. You signed for it. It's your obligation. There is a moral issue there, and you need to pay it back. And there are many people that believe that. Unfortunately, it's not always true. And the word odious, in term odious debt, is an exact example of legally why that's often not the case. And I argue that it's going to become more and more relevant to every one of us through our coming economic crisis. You're listening to Sam Spade. This is the Sam Spade Hour. We at this radio station, at this news, believe that the country is getting into another economic crisis. We're about to have an economic train wreck. We're entering the second Great Depression. And we are here, I'm here at this station to help you get through that crisis. Whatever comes, health, economics, keeping a roof over your head, feeding your family, those are the subjects that this radio station talks about. Now, today is Cash Friday, and so we're going to talk a lot about economics today on this station. We're on, by the way, every Friday from 1 to 2, talking about the issues that help you get through this problem. And today, we're going to talk about debt. We're going to talk about the debt you have. We're going to talk about a legal concept that's very important relative to the debt. And we're going to talk about whether you have a moral obligation to pay all that debt off or not. And if so, what you should do if you don't feel you have the moral obligation to pay it. Okay, I started this session by talking about the term odious debt. It's an expression that came into existence in, I believe, the 30s, during the last Great Depression. And the understanding about that, it actually may have been started then, but it mainly became far more useful in the 60s and 70s. And the understanding about that came about because banks loaned money to third world countries that were run by tin pot dictators. The tin pot dictators would take all that money, in theory, to build grandiose sorts of projects, giant monuments to themselves and things of that nature. But in fact, most of the money went into Swiss bank accounts. When they were eventually thrown out because their people were desperate and starving, and so they put another pedagogue in place of them. These guys left. The bankers came back to the new dictator and said, "You need to pay this money." And the new dictator would say, "Why? I didn't borrow it. I didn't sign it with my name. I didn't do anything with it. The guy that borrowed the money never spent it on the country or the economy or bettering the lives of the people. And so, no, we're not going to pay this debt." You knew that this was the case. You knew that we weren't going to be able to pay it. You knew what the dictator was doing with the money, and you loaned it to him anyway. And they coined a term for this kind of money. The term was odious debt. And there is, in international law, the understanding that countries of this kind are not obliged to pay off odious debt. They're not obliged to pay off debt that was incurred by individuals who knew that they couldn't possibly repay the debt. In the case of countries, of course, that was a petty dictator running the country. But the issue applies just as much to present economic circumstances for other reasons. Let me give you a specific example that occurs nowadays. Suppose you run up a lot of debt, and then you have the mendacity to die without paying it off. What happens to all that debt? Well, if I told you all that debt must be paid by your children, if I told you that legally your debt devolves to them as a bequeathment, just as your assets would if you died with wealth that you supplied to them as inheritance, that the debt is now passed on as an inheritance too, and your children would have to pay this debt that you incurred, you would say, no, that's not right. And in fact, that would be a legitimate example of odious debt. The concept that offspring have to pay the debts of the fathers and the mothers is considered odious in our society. And yet the nature of government debt falls exactly in that category. I mean, think about it. I'm an old man. It was my generation that incurred a lot of the debt that exists right now in the federal government. Father's generation that incurred a lot more of it with World War II. In fact, a lot of it was occurred during the Depression in an attempt to pull the country out of depression. In fact, the debt really started to explode when it became free for government to print money about the time of 1913, when the Federal Reserve came into existence. At that point, government and public debt began to skyrocket, and it's very difficult to point to any of that debt and say, aha, look, we got all this physical plant for it. What kind of physical plant do we have? We have a road structure that is collapsing. Yeah, we have a lot of really nice government buildings, I suppose. We do have some nice national parks. We have a military, which is the terror of the world. We spend more on military than the 5 or 6 next largest countries in the world. None of which has provided much of a benefit to us because we really weren't at risk of being invaded or attacked or destroyed before all of this expense was being put into the military. So you have to ask yourself, what exactly, other than making a lot of very wealthy people very wealthy, what exactly was all this debt good for? And why in the world should the sons and daughters have to pay debt that the mothers and fathers incurred when it wasn't put towards physical assets that were of value to the children? That's almost the definition of odious debt. Now, look at your own finances. You're probably in debt. You're probably in debt up to your eyeballs. A few of us are not. I'm not. But most people are very, very, very pressed to keep food on the table without running up a large amount of debt. Look at the debt you have and ask yourself, what would happen if I declared this particular portion of debt odious debt? In other words, debt that really could not or should not be repaid for moral reasons because it never went to anything of value. It was slipped on me without my knowledge. Somebody fraudulently pushed it on me. Perhaps they got me to sign for a mortgage for a house that I couldn't possibly afford to pay on, and then repossessed the house as a result and left me broke. There's lots of reasons why you can look at odious debt and think about what it could have been cost. But look at your debt situation and ask yourself, if I'm going to declare some form of debt odious and say I'm not going to pay it because it was not legitimately incurred, what's going to happen to me? Well, to take credit card debt as an example, suppose I do that with all my credit card debt. Suppose I owe them $10,000 worth of credit card debt, and I tell the credit card company, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay. What's going to happen is they're going to make nasty statements in your credit report. The result is that nobody else is going to loan you any more money. Well, if you need money to survive debt, if you need to borrow money to survive, if you're on the debt treadmill where you have to constantly borrow every month in order to get to the next month, then you're going to be in serious trouble. And that's the way the people that print money control you, is they keep you hooked on debt so that you can't afford not to pay the debt you have, because you won't get any more debt and you'll be in serious trouble. So the first thing you need to do is ask yourself, suppose I restructured my life so that I didn't need credit anymore. I mean, that's something you can do. It's something that I've done. I do not have credit. I do not need credit. I actually think the credit I have is probably reasonable. I haven't looked at my report or filed a piece of paper with anybody in 20 years asking somebody to loan me money for credit. So you have to ask yourself, suppose you do that. Suppose you get yourself in that situation where you are no longer going to have to ask for credit. Well, then there's nothing to stop you from saying, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay my credit card debt anymore. Goodbye. Now, there's areas where you have to be careful about this, of course. If you say that for your house, for your mortgage, they'll come and take your house away. If you say that for your car, you'll come and take your car away. They say that for any kind of secured debt, they will take that debt away, that whatever secures that debt. So you need to be careful to be sure that you have adequate sources of income to keep paying down those debts, or you're going to wind up losing an asset that is very important to you. That's the other half of declaring something to be an odious debt. But in a personal level, look at your credit, look at the debt you own, and ask yourself, am I ever going to pay all of this off? And if the answer is no, and there are plenty of good reasons why the answer may be no that are beyond your control. If you say, no, I really don't have an obligation to pay all of this debt, then you need to pick which ones are really important, pay them down or even pay them off, like specifically, number one, own your own house, own your own car, own your own business free and clear, or the tools of your trade, whatever you need to keep money coming through the door. If you own those essentials for your life, then there's absolutely nothing to stop you from turning to the rest of the debt and saying, I'm sorry, I was browbeaten into taking this debt. It was not a free transaction, and I'm not going to pay it. I'm simply going to default on it. And the same is true in a larger global sense. I'm talking right now about government debt. I'm talking about the federal government. I'm talking about the state government. Because more and more, you're going to find that the government debt situation is going to become intolerable. And you have to ask yourself why you, as a son, should have to bear the cost of debts incurred by your father. Why should you be forced to pay debts as an inheritance from your father? Well, the answer in a micro sense is you shouldn't. Also, answer in a principled sense, you shouldn't. And so the answer, frankly, appears to be very applicable in terms of government debt as well. The answer is you shouldn't. Don't feel obliged to go along with a growing debt collapse that the government is going to try and push on your shoulders and claim you're responsible for, because that debt was not incurred by you. That was incurred by your progeny before you. So I hope you'll keep that in mind when it comes to the issue of debt, and specifically odious debt. It's an important term. I hope you will start to remember it in the future. Okay, let's talk about another subject. I mentioned earlier the fact that the ability to print dollars by the government and the central banks gives them the ability to buy the assets out from under you that you would normally use to produce goods and services and raise the standard of your living. They have the ability to outbid you on anything like that because they only pay 15 cents per $100 in order to print the money to buy the property that you're bidding against, or to buy a business that you might be bidding against, or to buy a government contract that you might be bidding against. And the question that you have to ask yourself is why do we use dollars? I mean, why don't we use something else? Like, to take an example, silver. If I had a silver dime, why can't I just walk in and pay for things with a silver dime? Why am I using dollars? Well, the short answer, the easy answer is it's because it's what everybody wants when you walk into a store. If I walked into Walmart and I said, listen, I want to fill this cart up with groceries and I want to pay you in silver dimes, they would say no. Officially, they would say no. Now, you might have a cashier who knew the silver dimes were worth a lot and had enough money to buy your groceries for you in exchange for the silver dimes, which she would put in her pocket. But as far as Walmart is concerned, the answer is no. And there are two reasons why that answer is no. And let me give you a hint about that answer that is not because of legal tender laws. There is nothing that prohibits Walmart from accepting silver dimes to pay for your food. Nobody is going to come in and pound Walmart employees around the head and shoulders with nightsticks because they accept silver coins to pay for that food. Legal tender laws have nothing to do with it. What it is tied to is the fact that money is an inherent network phenomenon. Walmart is willing to take money from you, whatever money is, in this case dollars, willing to take it from you because they know that they can turn around to their suppliers, and their suppliers will take those same $100 bills. And so they're really just passing them through. If the suppliers were set up to take silver dimes and not $100 bills, they wouldn't accept $100 bills. They would accept silver dimes instead. It's a network phenomenon. The bigger the network, the more valuable it is, the more likely people are to be happy with it. And that's what's going on with dollars. It's the biggest network around. So you have to ask yourself why. Why is it such a big network? Well, there are two reasons. And they're very important reasons. And they're reasons that we need to be cognizant of as we go through this economic train wreck and come out the other side. The first is the government demands payment in dollars. They demand it for taxes, they demand it for fees, they demand it for services. And because the government is such a huge part of our economy, they can force a large part of the economy, non-governmental economy, to use dollars, to store dollars, to pay with dollars, to be in the dollar network, because it's the only way that you can possibly wind up participating in the overall economy. And so the first requirement when we get out of this crisis is that we must demand that the government not use fiat money, not use debt money in its accounting. We must demand that they are forced, just as the Constitution requires, by the way, that the states, in theory, are forced to accept only some form of equity money. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter whether it's gold or silver or Bitcoin, just as long as it's not money that comes out of a printing press. That's the important thing. And that's one way the government controls what we have to pay in terms of participating in the economy. Now, the second way is the fact that most of the transactions that you engage in are not face-to-face. Get into Walmart and buy a cartload full of groceries. I'm doing that face-to-face. I can hand them a $100 bill for my groceries, or nowadays a couple $100 worth of bills, depending on how full that card is. But I can hand them pieces of paper, Federal Reserve notes, and have them say, great, that's a face-to-face transaction. But most transactions that occur in our society are not face-to-face. Even some that are close and conceivably could have been are not face-to-face. When you pay your EPB power bill, I mean, you could get in your car and drive down to EPB and give them the money, right? Pay them cash. There are people that do that. But most of the people, most of us who pay our EPB power bill, do it through a remote medium, through a third party. We establish an account at the bank. We put our money in that account. We direct that the bank pays EPB from that account, and we don't have to go to EPB to do it. And that's true whether you're paying an EPB account. That's true whether you're buying something from an Amazon situation. That is true whether you're paying for health insurance. That is true for most of the expenses that we engage in every day. Insurance, the cost of payments on our car, all of it. It's all remote payment. And the nature of remote payment is that it requires a third party. You have to give a third party whatever asset you have. You have to trust that they will use that asset in the way that you direct. And they, most of the time, do that. But because of the way our economy is structured and because of the fact that the government has control over it, this time with the nightsticks, that system all uses banks that the governments basically own and control. Banks nowadays are nothing but an arm of the government. So the government can decide at any time whether you have the ability to pay money for goods and services or not. And all they have to do is to say, no, we will not allow you to pay in silver dimes for remote goods and services. So even if the insurer of your house located in, I don't know, New York, let's say you're insuring your house from a big mortgage company in New York, right? Even if they said, yes, we'll gladly accept silver dimes as payment of your insurance, and you wanted to give them silver dimes, you couldn't, because you'd have to go through a banking system, and the banking system is specifically prohibited from accepting and transferring silver dimes as payment. They will only accept dollar bills. That's the way the government forces you to use and transact in dollar bills. That's the way they force you through the network to control this network and keep using money that they want you to use. You know, the net result is that they have two ways of drastically increasing their power over you. One is, what are you going to save in? I mean, if you want to put aside money for a rainy day, what are you going to use? Well, you could use silver coins, you could use gold coins, you could use Bitcoin. That's certainly assets that are valuable and assets that work. But then when it comes time to pay your bills, let's say you're injured, you're out of work for a month, you have to cash in on your savings and pay your bills. You've got to find a way to convert those things to dollars, because your bills are all coming in dollars, because that's the way the network is. And the network is that way because the government controls it through the two ways that I've just mentioned. So you wind up saying, well, what am I going to save in? Well, I don't want to have to run out and sell these silver coins in an emergency. So I'm going to save in dollars to begin with. That's the nature of the way the United States controlled not just your savings of dollars, but worldwide, the savings of dollars overseas. The reason so many dollars were stored overseas is that the U.S. economy was such a big part of the world economy, and they controlled through the petrodollar the way oil was charged, also in dollars. So the average country, Korea, for instance, South Korea, what's South Korea going to save money in if it has some extra cash that it's developed through trading? It's going to save them in dollars, because the chances are it's going to need those dollars to buy oil, or it's going to need those dollars to buy goods and services that come from America, or it's going to need those dollars to buy goods and services that somebody else who has already made that same decision has. And that meant that there's a whole bunch of money that the government can print and use to buy stuff that doesn't contribute to inflation because it's in people's savings accounts. It's not actively chasing goods and services. It doesn't drive up the price. So that's the first reason they're really happy with that. And the second reason, of course, is that they get to print it all for almost nothing. 15 cents is what it costs to print a $100 bill. And it's a whole lot less for money that's purely electronic in nature. That gives them tremendous purchasing power over you and the world that you deal in. That allows them to buy up all the assets that you would normally use to become a capitalist, that you would normally use to buy goods and services every day in exchange, like small businesses, like your house, like your car. they wind up forcing you to be in debt on all of it. And that's why the issue of odious debt is so important in the future discussions that are coming up. So I just wanted to make this point to you. You know, we talk here on the Sam Spade Show about many, many issues that are going to become critical to you in the coming train wreck. And money, and the nature of it, and how it's used to control you is one of them. So is small businesses that you can start, keeping food on your table, what to do if the economy crashes and you can't get money out of the cash machine. We talk about all these issues every single Friday, 1 to 2.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Need windows? Hey folks, do you need new windows? Good news. Window Depot of Chattanooga has a great special going on right now. 10 high-quality, energy-efficient double-hung vinyl windows installed for only $29.90. That's right, 10 double-hung vinyl windows, only $2,990. And yes, they qualify for the TBA rebates. Call 894-0011. Window Depot of Chattanooga today, located at 5950 Shalford Road. Call 894-0011 today.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson, Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929. McCune, Williams & Ashley PLLC offers a full array of legal services to meet the needs of businesses and individuals. Our attorneys represent diverse backgrounds, interests, and legal emphasis, but we share one common goal, providing the highest quality legal services to our clients through the combination of our talents, experience, and expertise. In each case, we strive to tailor those services to meet each client's specific circumstances. Business law, business organization, civil litigation, commercial litigation, conservatorship and guardian law, bankruptcy law, just to name a few. With over 188 years of combined experience, McCune Williams Ashley PLLC is here to help you and your business succeed. MWALawFirm.com. That's MWALawFirm.com. Call 423-756-6400. That's 423-756-6400.
How about we change that to Built in the USA? For over 21 years, Affordable Computers has been building computers right here in the good old USA, in Chattanooga, using the highest quality parts and components in every new computer they build. Tell us the exact system you need, we'll build it to your specifications. Or you can choose from a wide selection of our PCs and laptops, starting at under $200. All Affordable Computers are upgradable, guaranteed. Affordable Computers services their computers in store, typically within 1 to 3 days. And when you call, they answer the phone. You get support within minutes that you can understand. Affordable Computers of Chattanooga. And service and support extends for the life of the computer, not just for the warranty of the PC. So there's no reason to shop anywhere else. Call Affordable Computers now on Highway 58 Chattanooga, 423-499-1975. That's 423-499-1975.
Or visit our Fort O store, 706-858-5888.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots, they touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee!
What's the hassle, schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing it.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the Southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, David Tulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
News Talk 1240.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM News Now. The city of Saudi Daisy is now debt-free after paying off its loan to buy the big Saudi
WBLZ HD4 Udawa, W224AZ Chattanooga, WSDT Saudi Daisy Chattanooga. Last hour on the herd.
Okay. Somebody has to be a backup this year. And we all know how this works. We want to redshirt him. We don't want to play him. But by the end of the year, the Bears are going to be bad. They're going to play Mitchell Trubisky. So you've already ruined the relationship with Glennon, who thought this was his grand opportunity.
There's more to come
Right now.
in the herd.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You guys can laugh at me all you want.
This is the herd.
The herd.
With Colin Cowherd.
I'm setting the tone.
This show on radio.
This is the herd.
Broadcasting live from Los Angeles. With Colin out.
What?
Here's Doug Gottlieb.
What up? It's the herd. Doug Gottlieb in for Colin for one final hour. Colin will be back on Monday. Monday. Adrian Wojnarowski, Woj, the sage of all news in the NBA, will be joining us half past this hour. Will Steve Kerr return at any point in time during the playoffs? What will happen with the Clippers? What's going to happen with Carmelo Anthony? And was that really Markieff or Marcus Morris in game 2 of the Wizards' loss to the Celtics? Wizards got to within a game, 2-1, with a big blowout win of the Celtics last night, and the Golden State Warriors took a commanding 2-0 lead as they won by 11, even though the spread was 13, at home last night. But the big news of the day is probably the National Football League. Jay Cutler, who formerly a member of the Bears. You're like, wait. Jay Cutler's not on the Bears? Who did he sign with? Houston? Nope. The Jets? Nope. Jay Cutler, he'll be on the herd on Monday. That's because he's a Fox NFL analyst. Jay Cutler could have gone back and played, probably a part on money and other things with the Jets. The Texans supposedly weren't interested. There's a guy who doesn't have, it's not that he has a bad reputation, but doesn't have a great reputation in terms of his leadership skills and maybe his actual on-field football ability. And in his own words, seemed to have lost at least a portion of the desire to try and right whatever had gone wrong in his career. Instead, took the exit ramp until a great job opportunity. It's a great job opportunity. Like, you go straight from playing in the NFL, maybe being a backup, to being on the number 2 crew with Fox, covering the NFL. Like, that's big time. Big time. You're skipping steps there anytime you get a chance. And it's a 30, 40-year profession if you don't screw it up. So it absolutely works for him. And I think maybe the question becomes, this is kind of an all sports thing. In Major League Baseball, I think Alex Rodriguez is the exception. Pedro Martinez is the exception. The norm is most of these great players from now until eternity, John Smoltz, but John Smoltz didn't make the money that the guys are making now. You're always going to have a difficult time getting all-time greats to do broadcasting for Major League Baseball, especially the regular season, right? The regular season is 162 games. And even if a guy says, well, I don't want to do a full slate, you can't really cover half the season for a team. You just can't. You have to know everything that goes on. And so many of these guys in baseball have so much money, and they've spent so much time away from their families. They're like, dude, the hell with it. I don't want to do it. It's just too much money. I think we'll see it more and more in basketball as well, where guys have, like, the amount of money that is being made is ridiculous. And because basketball, for the most part, is a long, long career. Jason Terry just joined us. He's played 19 years in the NBA. Kevin Garnett making $500,000 over the life of his NBA career. So what's going to happen is it's going to be harder and harder to get great players to, hey, man, I need you to come in for 100 nights of the year and talk ball. everybody says they want to do it, but when it becomes a job, you're like, yeah. Football's a little bit different because even though the money is huge for the quarterbacks and for some of the position players, average lifespan of a football player in his career is only 4 years. And so some of those guys, they need the work. They need a job. They need kind of a next thing. So I'm just wondering, though, if you look at Calvin Johnson, who was really well compensated. Larry Fitzgerald thought about it this year. Tony Romo did walk away. And now Jay Cutler, Jay Cutler, whether he's a starter or whether he's a backup, like he could have made $5 million to go play football. Like there's a little bit of, do you guys know what chasing the market is? Yeah. It applies in other other fields. Let's just use it in real estate, for example, right? Say you heard your market, your area is really, really hot, right? And you bought your house for $500,000. And everybody in the neighborhood seems to be telling you the market's hot, the market's hot. You know what you should do? List your house for $1 million. So you get a little greedy and you're like, hey, I put in more money into my house. I got a better yard. I'm at the end of a cul-de-sac. I got a pool. I got space. Everything's been updated. We got no issues. Great neighborhood. My neighbor's house sold, per square foot, mine should be $1.1 million. And then all the homes around you start to sell in the 7s, 8s, and 9s. And you're sitting there at 1.1. And then by the time you lower your price, your house has been on the market for 60 days, 90 days, 100 days, because you thought that's your price. Make me move at that price. And now somebody comes into the neighborhood, they're like, do. And they look at your house like, wow, this house is beautiful. It's on a cul-de-sac. Got a pool. Updated. Man, it's been on the market for 100 days. Something must be wrong with it. And so you end up going from wanting to get the top of the market to chasing the market all the way down. Many of these NFL quarterbacks, that's the problem. That's going to be the problem with Kaepernick. That's probably the problem with Cutler as well, which you see Mike Glennon, who's unproven as a starter, get $18.5 million essentially up front in a 1-year deal. And you're like, look, I've been doing this for a decade. Okay. Last year, Ryan Fitzpatrick got $12 million. What's my value? 15 mil. I'm a starting quarterback. But then you see other guys at your level starting to get less because they're backups. And no one's willing to take you on and guarantee you that you're a starter. And now you start chasing the market. And you have to make the decision, and you own a house. Do I chase the market down and sell it for $800,000 when I thought I was getting 1.1? Or do I, you know what? I'm going to pack it in. I'm going to live in it. And the next time the market's hot, I'm going to list it more appropriately. Same thing for Jay Cutler. Probably the same thing for Kaepernick. For Cutler, his decision was easy. I didn't really want to play football, but I didn't want to end it the way I ended it. But now I get a chance to start a whole new career and skip a bunch of steps. Done deal, just like Romo. You know? For Kaepernick, I would say the smartest way is to, and this is another thing in terms of real estate, is like, right, you wait until you'll hold it on the market, or you take it off the market and put it back on right in August, right when somebody's getting ready to move into. If you're in a good school district and somebody's moving in, they got to get in that school district before school starts so they can get their kid in that right school. So, if I'm Kaepernick, I wait. Somebody's going to go down. Somebody's going to need a quarterback, and you're the guy. Whatever your hesitation on Kaepernick, be it political, be it the fact that he can't change arm angles, he has small hands, he doesn't always have great grasp of the playbook, he likes to run too much, but he's not as fast as he used to be, his arm's not as strong as it used to be, he's not terribly easy to get along with, he has to fit in a specific system. Like, any of these things can be logical reasons why you don't want him to be your starting quarterback. When you have your starter go down, and if you have a good team and you're looking out there, you're going like, man, who's out there? Who's available? Ooh. Brandon Whedon, you start go through this. Hoyer's already in San Francisco. The Fitzpatrick, no. which one of the McCowns will be available, or Colin Kaepernick. You're like, he played in a Super Bowl team, played in a couple great playoff games. That is a lot like being that last really nice house available right before school starts. Wait, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself. But think about the trend that we have now. Right? Like you have Tony Romo was a really good quarterback. I could make the argument to you that Tony Romo is the least respected, super high quality quarterback. The problem is I don't have the playoff game or the playoff run. Like, yes, Dez caught the ball, but that wouldn't have ended the game. He won 2 playoff games. And to go from there to the big chair at CBS, or to go from Jay Cutler, who was getting killed because of his body language when he had a knee injury. He'd been hurt all the last 3 years. The season been hurt. Coaches didn't want him around. You go from that to the number 2 seed at Fox. And, oh, yeah, by the way, if you put him in the right situation, they're going to put Charles Davis as another analyst in the booth, where all Cutler has to do is tell you, like in 2017 football talk, what he would have seen and what you're supposed to do, and just teach the game from a quarterback's perspective. He's clearly bright enough. He's obviously an engaging guy, right? Like, you do that, and you got this job for 30 years. But it'd be a fascinating trend. Fascinating trend. Last night in Washington, I thought we saw something we haven't seen enough, maybe. And I know that lots of guys yearn for the olden days. And I don't think it's necessarily like when Kurt Rambis, who did Kurt Rambis clothesline? Did he clothesline Dennis Johnson, or did he clothesline? I think it was Danny Ainge he clothesline. Like clotheslining a guy, undercutting a guy, sucker punching a guy, like wherever the line is, wherever the gray area is, I always thought that's, even old school NBA guys like, yeah, it's a bit too much. But last night, Kelly Olynyk set a nasty playoff screen. A nasty playoff screen on Kelly Oubre. Here's what it sounded like.
Isaiah to his left, and moving screen called on Kelly Olynyk, who immediately goes, oh my goodness! A vicious cheap shot thrown at Kelly Olynyk. And man, you talk about flashing back to the 80s.
Oh.
One of the dirtiest plays we have seen in years. Kelly Olynyk was talking to an official, and he got hammered from the backside. Was that Oubre?
Oubre.
Kelly Oubre's night is done. His playoffs may be done. My goodness. What was that young man thinking? Obviously, the answer, nothing.
Look, Kelly Oubre, let's be honest now. He pushed Kelly Olynyk, right? Like, he pushed him. He didn't slug him. It wasn't like Kelly Olynyk was standing there just walking along going, hey, what's going on here? And he came in and Cole cocked him, and there was 2 hits, him hitting Kelly Olynyk and Kelly Olynyk hitting the floor. Also, are they the only 2 guys named Kelly in the NBA? I just thought in my mind, and the last Kelly I can think of is Kelly Leak, right? Kelly Leak with Bad News Bears, who Steve Nash looks remarkably like. Steve Nash looks like Kelly Leak. Just does. How do we know Steve Nash and Kelly Leak aren't the same guy? I don't know. But the fact is, like, we kind of need that. The playoffs have been boring. They just have.